Hello, I'm Jim Gatstein with the Law Project for Psychiatric Rights. Next Tuesday, January 21st, the Alaska Legislature is going to introduce House Bill 214, improving grievance procedures for psychiatric patients in Alaska. The hospital has stated that they don't need any changes in grievance procedures because nobody's filing grievances, but then they just decide when people file complaints that they're not even worth considering as grievances. It's pretty ridiculous to think that a place where everybody's there involuntarily don't have any complaints. There are a lot of abuses that go on in psychiatric hospitals, and people who complain just get dismissed because they're called crazy. Please support Faith Myers and Doris Collins and contact your legislators in support of House Bill 214. Thank you.
My name is Faith Myers. I volunteer as a mental health advocate. I support House Bill 214. Before I give my testimony, I want to show you a binder produced by Behavioral Health that contains about 40 Alaskan grantee grievance policies. Most cover psychiatric clinics and acute care psychiatric units in hospitals. In 2011, the Department of Health and Social Services was instrumental in altering administrative code. DHSS is no longer required to gather grantee grievance procedures, and grantee psychiatric clinics and units are no longer required to post a copy of the patient grievance procedure. The action of DHSS will deny psychiatric patients and the general public ready access to the psychiatric patient grievance procedures and policies. The patient grievance procedures in this binder have several shortcomings in common. 1. There is no time frame for the completion of appeals. 2. There is no requirement to post patient grievance procedures. 3. The Department of Health and Social Services is required to investigate trust authority beneficiaries' complaints. Grievance policies do not inform psychiatric patients of that fact. 4. All 40 grievance procedures in this binder are very different. The common thread is they do not protect a psychiatric patient in crisis. And now I will give my testimony. As I said, I'm Faith Myers and I volunteer as a mental health advocate. I support House Bill 214. House Bill 214 will save lives and aid recovery. Nobody chooses to become mentally ill. A person can be put in handcuffs, put in a police car, and locked in institutions. A person with a mental illness is often made to feel powerless by the psychiatric institutions. Feeling powerless erodes a patient's self-confidence. It hinders recovery and actually promotes further mental illness, including post-traumatic stress disorder. The power during the grievance process right now rests with the psychiatric institutions and clinics, which tend to operate in self-interest. All psychiatric patients should be given improved basic rights in law. A right to file a grievance, a right to file an appeal, a right to due process, a right to assistance and the protection of their rights. Granting patients rights, empowering patients to protect themselves, promotes recovery. In addition, granting patients rights allows patients to protect themselves from institutional mistreatment. Approximately 38,000 Americans commit suicide each year. 90% are considered to have a mental illness. Granting more rights to the mentally ill is good for the patients, good for society, and aids recovery. In closing, I support the passage of House Bill 214 HB 214 gives many necessary patient rights and grievance rights to acute care psychiatric patients locked up in psychiatric facilities and units. It improves the grievance procedure law, adding due process, appeal process, and urgent grievance procedure resolved in 24 hours. It requires a patient advocate to be available to patients in units. House Bill 214 is a good vehicle to move patient rights forward. HB 214 needs patient advocates and the grassroots public to get involved, emailing Representative Pete Higgins with their support for the bill. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Dorrance Collins. I volunteer as a psychiatric patient advocate. I support House Bill 214. All 27,000 psychiatric patients in Alaska should be given improved grievance rights. The right to file a grievance, a right to appeals, the right to due process, the right to assistance in the protection of rights, the right to file an urgent grievance. Almost a decade ago, the Alaska Supreme Court stated that psychiatric institutions tend to operate in self-interest. Since 1992, Alaska has given the authority of writing patient grievance procedures to psychiatric institutions, units, and clinics. The patients end up with a grievance procedure that does not protect them or help them in recovery. AS 4730-847, the current grievance law, only covers about a third of the acute care psychiatric patients. There's no right to an appeal, there's no right to due process, and psychiatric institutions write the patient grievance procedures. Administrative Codes 7AAC 12-890D simply tells psychiatric clinics to write a patient grievance procedure. There's no requirement for an appeal process, no requirement for due process. There are some severely mentally ill individuals that receive treatment in clinics. State behavioral health requirements for grantee grievance procedures does not cover psychiatric units receiving direct funding. 30 days to resolve a patient complaint. There is a requirement for an appeal process, but there's no time frame for the completion. In the absence of the state writing patient grievance procedure rules, appeal process, due process, the default patient grievance rules comes from Joint Commission for Accreditation of Hospital Organizations and other certification organizations. Their basic grievance rules are 7 days to notify a psychiatric patient that a complaint is received, another 7 days to notify the patient of the complaint resolution. It's 14 plus days in total. There is no requirement for an appeal process. JCAHO's grievance procedure requirements do not protect acute care psychiatric patients in crisis. And there are about 10,000 individuals in Alaska that are in psychiatric emergency rooms, in civilly committed. To recover, psychiatric patients need an Alaska grievance procedure law that provides true protection for all psychiatric patients. And I support House Bill 214. Thank you.